Lessons, family. So we're going to talk about vegetarianism and veganism and how that pertains to the Bible message and the Bible code. So obviously in Genesis, the original instructions for man was that the fruit bearing seed was given for our food, right? And in Genesis times, people lived very long lives in harmony with nature. So the Bible clearly gives us instructions to what we should eat. And nowhere does it say anything about eating of flesh until after the flood, right? When the fall of man came, right? Representing a fallen state, where in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, the priesthood had been completely corrupted and were endlessly sacrificing animals in the name of God, right? So it's not until Deuteronomy and Leviticus where there's a lot of bizarre and dark stuff that is, instructed in the name of God, right? Like witchcraft and black magic and all this kind of stuff, which the priesthoods were carrying out. For example, killing birds and using their blood to do rituals, and putting curses on women to kill them if they are guilty of certain sins, right? So it's obvious to see that this priesthood was very corrupted, right? And so then you have Jeremiah, who stated that the scribes had corrupted the law with a lying pen. And clearly the law of Moses commands no killing, right? So this contradicts what the priesthoods were doing, killing for their rituals and killing for their sacrifices, right? And eating animals, right? And Isaiah clearly rebuked them for murdering animals, saying that God never ever required sacrifice and that no killing will be allowed on God's holy mountain, and that even the lion will eat straw, telling them to repent and go clean themselves from the bloodshed, right? So also we have to take into consideration the fact that Jesus was a Nazarene, right? So the Nazarenes and the Essenes are very closely associated. The Essenes were considered a heretical sect of Judaism who lived very pure lives in asceticism, and basically rebuked and refuted animal sacrifice back in those days, right? They were known for eating raw foods, asceticism, fasting, vegetarianism, right? And just a pure way of living, which many of the Israelites in those days were influenced by, right? Including many of the apostles like James, Peter, Matthew, and Thomas, who were all documented for being vegetarian, right? Also, many of the Gnostics, the Gnostic sects, the Gnostics is just a term for a heretical sect of Christians. They were all, well, many of them were strict vegetarians, like the Cathars, who were genocided by the church, right? The Mancinians and the Equitites, right? All vegetarians strictly. Also, if you look at the story of Jacob and his brother Esau, when Esau was described as a sort of beastly character who used to go out and hunt animals and kill animals for his food. And Jacob is in the house eating his lentils and his soup and his bread, right? And then Esau comes in to the house and he's hungry because he didn't find any animals to kill. And Jacob's there eating his soup and says, well, I should have your inheritance if you want any of my food. And Esau basically ignorantly just gives up his inheritance for a meal, right? Showing that he wasn't very responsible or caring about his responsibility. Many people talk about the Passover meal, right? And say that Jesus must have eaten the lamb for the Passover as he instructed the apostles to go and prepare the Passover meal. But if many of them were influenced by the Essene teachings, which 100% we know James, Peter, and Matthew and Thomas were, then surely those apostles weren't eating and killing lambs, right? So maybe Jesus didn't mean lamb, like that might be the traditional way, but many people would say at Christmas, for example, to go and prepare the Christmas meal. Christmas meal is traditionally a turkey, but if you're vegan, that doesn't mean turkey, you know. So people often kind of refute all of this information and use Paul's letters to override that, saying that they've been given permission to eat animals. And Paul said that basically we should not argue about what we eat, but rather make it a personal decision. And I don't disagree with him. I think it should be a personal decision. It is your personal decision how you interact with creation and your relationship with God. That is a direct personal thing. But I don't think that what Paul says should override the whole message of what the prophets and God is saying in totality within the Bible, because Paul was not even a true apostle, right? He was a persecutor of the early followers, right? So we should sprinkle a little bit of salt on what Paul says to purify it, right? Take it with a pinch of salt. So Jesus also said in Matthew that my God requires mercy and not sacrifice. But he also said that it's what comes out your mouth which defiles you and not what goes in your mouth. And if we have any wisdom, we should not take what he says out of context, because he's talking more in the spiritual terms, like what you say and what comes out your mouth is what truly shows the cleanliness of your spirit and your soul, right? But we know that what goes in your mouth, what we eat and consume, can cause disease within our body and disharmony within creation, right? This is an obvious fact that we know, right? So we don't need to take that out of context in any way. So ultimately, I think it's clear that the Bible is telling us that in the kingdom of heaven there will be no killing, right? And that will be a place of harmony. And that is indeed what God is guiding humanity towards manifesting on the earth, right? So I'm not here to judge anyone for their own relationship with creation, God, with their food, but I am here to just establish what the actual instructions are and the truth of the Bible code, right? And that I believe that we are evolving into this slowly and gradually. So yeah, thank you. Peace be with you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.